wild nights, were I with thee, wild nights should be our luxury. Futile the winds to a heart in port, done with the compass, done with the chart. Rowing in Eden, the sea. But might I but more tonight in thee. This is probably Emily Dickinson's very most, as they say, elliptical poem. Elliptical in the sense that every place there's a double dash, there's also a gap. These are not exactly sentences, are they? What are the relationships between this and that? Who is the speaker? What is the rhetorical situation? Well, we see, my goodness, 5 exclamation points. This is a very excited speaker. We also know that this is a very excited speaker because of the very brief punches of words. They kind of hit you, just boom, wild nights. So this tells us a lot about the speaker. Now, the other thing that we might guess is that an awful lot of poetry in the Western world is love poetry. And so we can guess, can't we? Were I with thee, that tells us mostly what we need to know about this poem and this speaker. This speaker is what we would call the lover. Most of your romantic poetry, and I mean this in the sense of love poetry, so that's from any period in history whatsoever, the love poetry is written by the lover, and the audience is the beloved. So this is one person speaking to another person. The audience is the beloved, the one whom the lover loves. Okay, what do we do with the rest of this? Wild nights should be our luxury. Luxury is a form that can, in Western literature, mean an awful lot of things, but here we can guess that what it means simply is to have time together. That is a very common situation in a form called the Obeyed, which is basically a poem that says, "Sun, go away so that I can have more time with my beloved and not have to get up and go shoe horses or whatever it is I do for a living." So luxury meaning the ability to have some free time together away from work. Futile the winds to a heart in port. Well, what are these images for us? Port tells us that whatever we're talking about, the heart, we're getting double metaphors here. The heart in port suggests safety for a ship. Okay, futile the winds to a heart in port. That suggests to us that the lover is being equated with a ship specifically one that, a sailing ship, right? It has masts, it has sails. Futile the winds to a heart in port, meaning that the ship cannot be blown off of its course. Its port, it is at home, presumably with the beloved. Right? That is the place of safety, and nature cannot move this ship from its moorings in the port. Done with the compass, done with the chart. Well, we've already surmised that the lover is equating himself, herself, right? The speaker is genderless here. The speaker could be a male speaker or a female speaker. Done with the compass, done with the chart. Compasses and charts are things that navigators of ships use to figure out where they are going. So done with the compass, done with the chart, this means the ship is home. It doesn't need to go somewhere. It is not off on a journey of discovery. It's not looking for anybody else. The heart is in port. The heart wants to stay with the beloved, not go elsewhere. Rowing in Eden, the sea, might I but more tonight in thee. So wild nights, what is it expressing beyond, shall we say, perhaps ecstasy, desire, excitement, but also I'm going to stay with you. I don't need to look any further. Right? So that's wild nights for us, and sort of a way in which a person can read Emily Dickinson and leave with some meaning. Let's try the next one. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. And sweetest in the gale is heard, and sore must be the storm that could abash the little bird that kept so many warm. I've heard it in the chillest land and on the strangest sea, yet never in extremity it asked a crumb of me. All right, so what do we do with this? Hope is the first word, and it's followed by a lot of relationships, right? And we see it used in the last line. So the only thing that it can refer to is hope. This is an entire poem that is about hope. So it's got birds, it's got feathers, it perches. Hope is a thing with feathers. Clearly, the metaphor here is that hope is being represented by a bird. Now, in what ways is our next question. How is hope like a bird? So, that perches in the soul, all right. Now, the use of the word soul here is very suggestive. This is 19th century poem, right? The date we have here is 1861. This is very long after Descartes had separated the mind from the soul, and a very long time after it was possible in Western scholastic thought to think of oneself as not necessarily of a religious mind bent, but to think of the human being, right? This is well after the beginnings of secular thought in philosophy. So what does she mean by soul? Can we assume that this is your very typical, well, we know Emily Dickinson, she's from Amherst, Massachusetts, so we would presume that the prevailing religion for the 19th century would certainly be Protestant. Which particular group of Protestants, we would have to delve further and look into her biography. But can we assume that she is using this word soul in a very common understanding of the word soul in Protestantism? Well, no, because the date is 1861, and this is very long after scholastic thought had found its way into, pardon me, higher education, for example, and scientific reasoning and philosophy, and so forth. So hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul, but we still have to think of soul as something that is, in a way, incorporeal, that is, in some way, potentially eternal or immortal. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul. So that suggests that the soul, belonging to an individual human being, that it is somewhat natural, if you like, for the soul to possess hope, for hope to be seated there. Okay, and sings the tune without the words. Okay, birds, right, sing. And the tune, of course, might be suggestive of concepts of hope, if you like the way in which music can comfort the soul. Sings the tune without the words and never stops at all, which suggests that, of course, the soul may always be hopeful. And sweetest in the gale is heard. Gale is another word for storm, and you may ask yourself, why is it that Emily Dickinson seems to randomly capitalize nouns? Well, it's not really random. Emily Dickinson was, I believe, fluent in German, and German, I think, still, but certainly in the 19th century, in the German language and in writing in German, abstract nouns are always capitalized. It's just the convention of that language and the way in which it appears in print. So she wants us to know that she means an abstract noun here. Gale means storm, very specifically, very literally, but that she capitalizes it suggests to us that it has, what shall we say, a representative application, not a literal one. Okay, sweetest in the gale is heard, so hope, if you like, sounds all the sweeter when the soul is under duress, experiencing stormy weather, experiencing difficulty, challenge, drama. Okay. And sore must be the storm that could abash the little bird that kept so many warm. There's another aspect of the bird. A hen keeps the nest warm for the eggs, and once the chicks hatch. It's a little thing I know about birds. It takes baby birds quite some time before they feather out, and until they feather out, they're subject to weather, and cold weather can actually chill a bird to death. But once they've feathered out, it's as though the bird is always wearing a down comforter and is not affected by the weather. But so this hope, right? It would take a very, very strong storm for hope to stop singing. I've heard it in the chillest land and on the strangest sea, yet never in extremity it asked a crumb of me, which suggests here hope as a bird is a very self-sufficient bird. It doesn't need something from you. So this suggests that the soul, in particular, always has access to hope, that it is, let's say, beyond limitation. It never runs out, always available. Anyway, so I've read these two poems to you and given you a little bit of an example of how to try to read Emily Dickinson. And I want to assure you, very, very strongly, that there isn't just one way to read Emily Dickinson. For every single person who encounters this poem, and if you look at it now and you look at it again 2 weeks from now, you're going to get some different idea. And you're going to get it because of the looseness of her syntax. And this is purposeful. These double dashes, if you like, if you were to substitute, as the original editors did, they decided they didn't like the double dashes in the 19th century, and when she was in print, they would change them variously to commas or semicolons, and some of them to periods. But that fixes the syntax, and once the syntax is fixed, that limits the ways in which it can be read. It limits the relationship between objects and verbs, subjects and verbs, for example. But your double dash that she has, or long dash as you may call it, the long dash loosens the syntax, and it means that the relationship between the phrases or clauses can be given a different understanding. And there have been entire books, entire doctoral dissertations written on Emily Dickinson's dashes, because I think that readers take quite a bit of joy in going back to these poems and in seeing them differently, putting more emphasis in one place than another. And I do think it'll be true of you, too, that each time you read them, you're going to get something a little bit different. So enjoy, I hope.